Our parsha deals with the issue of mumim, blemishes. And it tells us that if a kohen, a priest, has a blemish, and it itemizes what those blemishes are, that such a priest may not do the avodah, may not do the temple service. The parsha then goes on to speak about korbanot, sacrifices, and that there are certain blemishes that would render an animal unfit to be a sacrifice. Its lip is torn, its eye is torn, it has growths on it, it's not perfect, and it's no longer valid to be a sacrifice. We see that within the sanctuary, there is very little tolerance for blemishes. However, that's not the case outside of the sanctuary. A kohen, a priest who has a blemish, is still a kohen. He still has rights and responsibilities of a kohen. He is still entitled to get many of the gifts that a kohen is entitled to. He still has the responsibilities. He cannot come into contact with a dead body. He cannot marry certain women. He is still a kohen. He's a priest outside of the sanctuary, outside of the temple. Within the sanctuary, he is limited because of his blemish. The same thing applies with an animal. That same animal that in the temple is invalid cannot be a sacrifice because it has a blemish. Outside of the sanctuary is a perfectly kosher animal. As long as it doesn't have a very serious injury, which is called a treifa, it's kosher for consumption. It can be slaughtered and it can be eaten. It just cannot be brought in the temple because in the sanctuary there is little tolerance for blemishes. And this brings us to the situation that we find in the world today. In the world today, people portray a version of themselves to the public, specifically on social media, that is unblemished. They take photographs of themselves from such an angle that any type of blemish that they may have, whether it's the fact that they're overweight or whatever it may be, people cannot see that blemish. Or they use Photoshop to touch themselves up. They give over an image of perfection. But in life, there is no such thing as perfection. Perhaps the sanctuary demands it. Hashem demands it when it comes to his service, the avodah, the temple service. But outside of that, we are all blemished. We all have our imperfections. And in fact, it is those imperfections that make us human beings and give us character. And the fact that people today will try to cover that over, they are actually not just fooling the people over there, outside, the people who are looking at them on their posts, but they're fooling themselves. There are certain things that we can change. There are certain blemishes in our characteristics, in our nature that we can change. But there are other things that we can't. Those are our beautiful imperfections. They make us who we are, and we should embrace them and not try to cover them over. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.